Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for your midnight transmission from Mike, Agent of Doubt here. Time for another ramble. Yeah, when I'm not being the world's worst SJW here on YouTube, uh, I'm working in a job that every day uh, I can't talk about the things that go on at the job because people's life stories are, you know, confidential when you're in counseling as a profession. So um, the things that take up my mind the most are things that I just cannot say to you. So I'm going to regale you all with a story from my own life, which uh, is not confidential at all. I'm pretty much an open book, and there's like 3,000 videos of me on YouTube talking about me. So um, no worries there. But I'm I'm going to be a little short with you guys for a couple days in a row. I'm still going to try to upload each day, but I've got a lot going on. And tomorrow it's Valentine's Day. I've got a couple of appointments in the beginning of the day, and I want to do something special for Misty. And I'm reading a book uh, that I need to finish this weekend, and the book is called The Schopenhauer Cure. So um, maybe I'll leave a link in the description box to that book that I have to read. It's another one by Yalom, and yeah, it's bound to be a classic, I guess. So here's the story. When I was in high school, I would ride the bus home from school. I was one of those kids that would get out from school, but I lived so far away from where my high school was that there were buses that would take us out to our neighborhood. And I had friends that lived outside of my neighborhood, but still rode the bus to get home. And so I would ride the bus with them in order to hang out with them for a little while. And, I would just ride the wrong bus home and go to their house. And one friend in particular I had, his name was David. He lived very close to where my father worked. And my father got off work around 5:30 in the evening, and the buses left the high school after 3 p.m. So I had, hour and a half, 2 hours to spend with friends in a different neighborhood if I would ride the wrong bus. But in order to get the rest of my ride home, because I was in the wrong neighborhood, I'd have to go over to where my father was working and get a ride home with him, you know, on his way home. So I would end up spending the last few moments of my father's day in his office, um, waiting for him to go home. And I saw many different things happen while when I did these. My father was a hospital administrator. This is after his career in the Army. He had a second career as a hospital administrator. Uh, and he was also a member of a union, the AFL-CIO union. And he held many offices within that union um, during his tenure. But the office that I remember him the most for was he was a union steward while I was in high school. So not only was he a hospital administrator, he was a member of a union and had to be the representative for people at the hospital that were also members of that same union. So, one thing that I remember him for in particular, when he was standing up for the rights of workers, was one day I went to his work after playing with David at his house for a couple hours, and I stopped by my dad's work to get a ride home with him, and he had a clock on a push cart. This push cart you would normally see like medical implements on. He just had a clock. And so I thought he was like going to do surgery on the clock, right? Uh, what he was doing was he was pushing the cart all around the hospital and noting the difference between the time on the clock on the push cart and the time on all of the different clocks in the hospital to uh, to establish a tolerance of a range of times that you could get if you were at any part of the hospital because the clocks were not synchronized anyway. This is before clocks would have been connected to GPS satellites. The technology wasn't around back then, or at least not readily available. All of these clocks were just you know going off of a Duracell battery and were basic, you know, two arm clocks. They weren't digital. And the reason my father was going around the hospital doing this was there was an employee who was being written up for coming into work late every day. This employee said that the person who was noting this was actually the reason why she was trying to come in only on time every day. So she would wait in her car until, like 2 minutes till, and then come into the building so that she would get to work right on time because she didn't want to spend any more time than she had to around this other person who was saying that she was late every day. And it was a surprise to her that she would say that she was late every day because she was coming in on time every day. And in order to defend this person, because this person was a member of my father's union, he went around checking all of the clocks in the hospital to see the range of different times that they could be off from each other so that he could tell the hospital administrators that he had to defend her from that there's no way they could know what time was on time if all of their clocks aren't synchronized and there's a range of time that they're off. So, yeah, he was fighting the good fight as far as protecting the members of his union as a union steward should. And most of what I saw him do was just defending people. So one day, I go to his work, and we're right about to leave, and somebody comes in with a problem, and they start talking to my father. And the problem was this guy was being asked by his boss to bag his own garbage from the trash can next to his desk and tie it up and set it outside of the door of the offices that he was in. He was like in a little cubicle farm, and each of the employees in that room were being now asked to take their trash, tie the bag, and set it outside the door so that the janitor would have an easier time collecting everyone's trash and taking it to the larger dumpsters in the back of the hospital. So this employee comes to my father and says, "This is not right. That's not in my job description. That's not my job." My father looked at him dead in the eyes, like laser beam shooting. And he said, "You're right. You don't have a job here anymore." And that sat with me, you know. And I figured that there was more context to it, that maybe there was other interactions with this guy, or more to the story. But really, at its core, my father was saying, if you're not going to be adaptable about what your job is, if you're not going to play ball with us and you know uh, be a team player, then we don't need you. You know. So fast forward about 10 or 12 years in my life, and I was an electrician working at the Exxon Mobil plant in Beaumont, Texas, for a contractor, not for Exxon Mobil. I was working for Neutron at the time, and I had just come onto the job. I was a journeyman, but uh, the other journeymen there were locals. They were from that local in the union, and I was from Lake Charles, Louisiana, and just traveling to work every day. And they didn't know me, but they were uh, basically replacing everything after a hurricane had hit. I believe it was Hurricane Ike. And first day on the job, they told me, "Okay, you see all those electricians up there? They're landing wires and junction boxes up there because we had to cut out everything that was 20 feet high and below. And so, what you're going to do is, because the superintendent walked through here and uh, he said that it was a mess. Every hour, you're going to sweep all the clippings from all of the wires that they're landing up there that are falling through the steel grates that they're all walking on, and you're just going to make sure that this work site looks clean until we get you your own crew." And at first, I was like, "What? Holy crap! You want me, a journeyman, to push a broom? You're paying me a lot of money." And at the time, I was working. I hired on to work 7 12-hour days a week, and the base rate was almost $30. It was like 28.50, right? And so I was kind of astounded that like they would have someone at my level pushing a broom, but I remembered that life lesson that my father instilled in me when I was a teenager. Um, and I thought to myself, well, if they want me to push a broom, then for the time being, I am just the most expensive janitor that you have ever seen because I like making money, and really from when I clock in on the job to when I clock out, what I'm there for is to make my employer happy. And the specifics of what I do, uh, I'm a little flexible on. You know, couple minutes out of every day, I'm willing to dabble in the expertise of other people, and I'm willing to take out the trash from my own office desk in order to smooth things over so everything runs smoothly and nobody's overworked. You know, and if it takes me pushing a broom for a couple days until I get put in a place where uh, my actual uh, abilities are being used, and so be it. You know, it's not the end of the world. And as long as I'm getting paid, bring it on. That's all I got, peoples. That's my story. Uh, Maybe tomorrow we'll have another midnight transmission, and hopefully I will have experienced a little life I can share with you guys that isn't the the musings of my clients that are confidential. So take care.